Hello, this is Vic. Welcome to my channel and thank you for viewing my videos. Today I'm in the country of Germany here in Europe, and I'm a few kilometers northwest from the beautiful city of Munich in Bavaria. What you're looking at behind me is the guardhouse and the gate to the notorious Dachau concentration camp. So for the next 2 or 3 hours we're going to walk around this infamous place. We're going to learn so much about history and the methods that Nazis, the National Socialist Party, used to intimidate and to punish its political opponents. So let's go for a long walk. Let's do it. And let's start our tour of this notorious concentration camp here in Bavaria. I'm about 25 kilometers northwest from the city of Munich, and this is the entrance to Dachau. Let's pass a tour group here and let's cross the iron entrance with the sign Arbeit macht frei, work will set you free. Of course, this is, or it was, pure propaganda. No matter how hard you worked at this camp, you would not be set free. As a matter of fact, the Nazis used work and slave labor as a form of torture. So let's go through this infamous gate and let's enter the main grounds of the concentration camp early on a Sunday morning, on a cloudy, cold Sunday morning. Now let's walk around and let's view the main sites here, and we're going to learn quite a bit about this horrible place here in Bavaria. Let's go for a walk. Before we proceed further into the camp, let's look at the main building here. I just crossed the gate that you see right there in the middle of the building. This is the only building that would provide access to the inside of the camp, so the prisoners had to go through that gate. This building was housing SS units around the clock, 24 hours a day. Torturing would take place here on the first and on the second floor of this building of the prisoners. And this is where the SS units will control several functions of the concentration camp, including controlling the electricity flowing to the fence around the camp. Speaking of the electrifying fence, here's a view of the fence facing the inside of the camp. There was also another fence, you can see it out there about 10 to 12 meters away, and between the two fences it was no man's land. Now, a lot of prisoners, if they wanted to commit suicide, they would just run towards this fence and they would be shot by the guards housed at the towers. You see one tower down there in the distance. So a lot of people died in this area right here in front of me. I'm now in the central point of the camp. The entrance that you just saw is right behind me, and this is where the roll call will be performed Every morning, all the prisoners had to come out here and be counted right at this spot over here. The sick, the weak, they all had to come out here and be counted. If the count was not correct, this process would last for many, many hours until they could get the correct count. Now, punishment of the prisoners would be executed on this spot as well to teach them a lesson right here in front of everybody. And since this process would take quite a long time, a lot of people would collapse here from exhaustion, and the other prisoners were not allowed to help them at all. So you can imagine the horrifying images of exhausted prisoners lining up over here every morning, beginning in 1933 up to 1945. And here's a view of a tower by the electrifying fence that you see here. There were several towers that were built around the camp, and on top of it there were SS units 24 hours a day with machine guns. Now, one of the books says that the SS soldiers, in order to have fun, they would steal the caps from the inmates and throw the caps right there outside the fence. And when the inmates would try to jump off the fence in order to retrieve their caps, the SS soldiers would shoot them. Now let's turn around and let's look inside the camp where the barracks used to be. These barracks were built after 1938, when the camp was greatly increased to include the different nationalities and groups that the Nazis had decided to bring here to the camp, in addition to political opponents from within Germany. Only the foundations of the barracks survive, and it's a grim image, really, to see the foundations here. There are two rows of barracks. This is one row here, and the other is on the other side of the camp, beyond those trees. Let's go down that way. The camp was opened up in March of 1933 by Himmler. Now, there used to be a munitions factory here, and the first prisoners, the political prisoners that came here in 1933, they were used for slave labor for the munitions factory. After 1938, the mission of this camp expanded to hold every kind of asocial or antisocial element that the Nazis could find in the areas they occupied. For example, after the annexation of Austria and Czechoslovakia, they brought a lot of Austrians and Czechoslovakians here. By 1939, there were 12,000 inmates here. Originally, there were about 5,000 in 1933. By the end of 1945, over 200,000 inmates had arrived here over the course of 12 years that the Nazis held power here in Germany. Now, some of the groups that they brought here would include Jehovah's Witnesses, Roma, clergy, including Serbian and Greek priests that were against the Nazi regime, Jews, of course, Polish, and let's don't forget the Soviet prisoners of war. Very close here in 1942, the Nazis executed 4,000 Soviet prisoners of war, one of the largest and biggest and most notorious crimes that were executed here during the 12 years of the Nazi regime. Now, of the 200,000 people that served, or they ended up here during the course of the existence of this camp, about 43,000 people died from torturing, execution, and starvation. Now the figures differ greatly. Some books would say 30,000 people died out of the 200,000, but here the documentation says 43,000 people died. Now let's have a look of the second row of the barracks. You can see the guard tower right there. And the barracks extending all the way down to the end of the camp. So you can imagine hundreds of people housed in this barrack here, let's say 1943, starving, exhausted, tortured. Soviet, Jews, Greeks, Polish, German, Austrians. Just imagine what happened here in this particular barrack. The suffering, the crying, the death, the torturing, the misery. The crimes against humanity, the incredible crimes. The humans committed against other humans. Now there was quite a variety of inmates here at Dachau. Let's say around 1942 you had so many different groups and so many different kinds of inmates. So the Nazis devised a method according to which they could distinguish one inmate from the other. And that was, they forced the inmates to wear a badge. And the color of the badge indicated your crime. For example, if you were arrested and you were German and you were arrested by the Gestapo because of political crimes or because you were resisting the Nazis, you would be wearing a red badge. If you were arrested because you were a Jehovah's Witness, you would be wearing a violet badge. The Jews would be wearing a yellow badge, and the homosexuals would be wearing a pink badge. And of course there were different variations depending on the crime that they thought you had committed or depending on the ethnic group that you represented. Strangely enough, the Nazis here also brought some people that they considered stupid, and they would have a badge for those people with the letters B-O-L-D that stands for stupid in German. Now, here's another interesting methodology that they came up with. If you were, let's say, Jehovah's Witness and you were homosexual, you would be wearing two badges, believe it or not. And you'll be wearing a violet and a pink badge. Absolutely incredible. At the end of the camp, we find 3 memorials. What you see here is the Catholic memorial built in 1960 in honor of the Catholic victims here at Dachau. come here to Dachau, make sure you visit all three memorials before you leave the camp. It's a round building with an altar in the middle, right there, with a crucifix right above the altar. Right there. And that's the Catholic memorial right there. And to the right of the Catholic memorial we find the Jewish memorial, set up and built in 1967. Let's go inside.
Yeah.
There is a vertical column of white marble that you see here going through the roof, and that represents continuity of life. And once again, here's the Catholic memorial, and to the left we find the Protestant Church of Reconciliation, set up in 1967. This is an actual church. Let's see if we can go inside for a few seconds. Come on, let's go down the steps here. And I'm now inside the Church of Reconciliation here at Dachau. Here's the altar. There's a small organ right there. Let's go to the corner here and get a full view of this small, symbolic, but very important church here at this notorious place. Now, just outside one of the entrances to the camp, very close to the Protestant church that you just saw, we find the Russian memorial for the Russian or for the Soviet victims that died here at Dachau. It was built in 1995 in the shape of a Russian church with an onion dome on top, and the Russian Orthodox church on top of the dome, as you can see right there. Thousands of Soviet prisoners of war were executed here at Dachau. That's the Protestant church that you see right there, the Catholic memorial, the barracks, the electrified fence. And here in the corner of the camp we find an opening. Let's go through. Let's cross the creek. To my left is the Russian church and memorial that I just showed you, and if I go straight here I enter the crematorium. This crematorium was built in 1940. Now I need to emphasize that no people were gassed here. The function of this crematorium was to burn the dead. That's because the number of dead was rising dramatically here from disease, torturing, executions, and so on. And the Nazis used the crematorium to burn the dead and to bury the ashes here in the area. And this is the place where you're gonna find intact ovens. You're gonna see them in a second. You're gonna get an idea what the ovens would have looked like if the crematoria in Auschwitz were captured intact in 1945. Let's go inside. Now the dead person will be placed on a stretcher here. The stretcher will be lowered down to the floor. The dead person will be placed on it. Then the stretcher will be raised, inserted into the oven, and then intense heat produced by coal from down there would burn the body, and then the ashes will be collected from the openings that you see right there. And these, ladies and gentlemen, are German Nazi ovens designed by the Nazis for the purpose of burning dead human beings, but it's the same kind of ovens that were used in Auschwitz after hundreds of thousands of people were gassed by using Zyklon B. Enough. Let's get out of here. This place is absolutely evil. So here's the crematorium. You see the chimney right there. I'm right behind the building. And let's go for a short walk. This is where the ashes of the dead were thrown or buried at here. So this area that I'm walking around at contains the ashes from thousands of victims. This area exactly here is where 92 Soviet officers were shot at in 1944. Right here. So this is not just a burial place, it's also an execution place as well. the addition to the torturing and of the starvation that the inmates suffered here at this horrible place, there was something else far more horrible taking place at the same time. And that is the medical experiments that were performed here. You see, the Nazis were trying to figure how long a Luftwaffe pilot would last if he lost his plane and he ended up in the freezing waters of the Atlantic. So some of the experiments they executed here were as follows. They would place an inmate in freezing water and they would record how long it would take for this person to die. This way they knew how long the pilot would last in the freezing waters of the Atlantic. Also, they would place naked people just outside these barracks over here in freezing temperatures, and they would record how long it took for this person to die. But the most sinister experiments were the so-called decompression experiments. You see, they would place a person in a chamber under rapid decompression, and then they would record how long it took for the person to die. This way they would calculate how long would the pilot last if he lost his plane at 14,000 feet and he jumped out of the plane with a parachute. Now, we do know that over 100 people died here in Dachau as a result of the medical experiments. We also know that Himmler personally had requested those medical experiments to be performed. And that's because at the end of the war, many documents were captured, and those documents were actual reports directly reporting to Himmler the results of the experiments, believe it or not. Now, you saw the foundations of the barracks in the beginning of this documentary. And here, in the central place where the roll call was performed at every morning, right here, they have reconstructed one of the barracks. So let's go inside and we'll get an idea what the barracks looked like. Now, there are some places in here that I do not believe reflect exactly what the actual barracks were like, and I will show them those places to you. Come on, let's go inside. Here's the so-called common room for the inmates, and I have sincere doubts that this room actually existed in 1942. I can hardly imagine inmates having their own cabinet space with a name tag right there. Imagine a Soviet officer arriving in Dachau and being assigned a cabinet for his belongings. I doubt it. So this is one of the rooms that I don't believe exactly reflects a room that existed in all the barracks. And this area that you see here, of course, is the toilet area, and this is pretty accurate. You see several toilets here arranged in 2 rows with no privacy whatsoever. And here's the washroom, and this is the second area of the barrack here that I doubt existed in all the barracks that we saw in the beginning of the documentary. This was a luxury, so to speak, and I do not believe these sinks or this washroom existed in all of the barracks. Now, if you really want to get an accurate image or a picture of what the barracks look like, go to Google and look at the barracks of Auschwitz, and I bet you those images and those pictures are far more accurate than what is represented over here. I'm not going to videotape anymore here because historically this building is so inaccurate, it is absolutely ridiculous. Now, if you have seen pictures from Dachau, without a doubt, you have seen pictures of this monument that was set up in 1968. This is the international monument here, representing the victims of Dachau. And at one end, if you go up to the top of the monument, you will see the expression "never again" in different languages, including Yiddish, English, French, German, and Russian. Here it is, "never again" in 5 languages. Now, right behind the International Memorial that you just saw, there's a very long exhibition hall, and it can take you hours to go through all the exhibits in this particular place. We're not going to go and look at any exhibit in particular, but let's walk through so you can get an idea what it looks like and what is exhibited here. Come on. In this exhibition hall, you're going to learn quite a bit about the history of the camp. And there are hundreds and hundreds of photographs all over. Describing the different groups. The history of the camp in explicit detail. Here they describe the different groups, the Italian, the French, Dutch and Belgian prisoners. A lot of maps. And of course we realize that this area of the building is one of the most crowded areas as well. There are videos. This is not really a place to bring children. Because some of the photographs on the displays are very graphic, very disturbing actually. Well, you get the idea. You can spend hours in here. This is an art exhibit. And it continues down this way. Well, hello once again, and thank you for joining me, and thank you for viewing this documentary of mine from Dachau, the concentration camp here in Bavaria, in Germany. What you're looking at behind me is the "Never Again" sign from the International Memorial set up here in 1968 in the center of the camp. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe to my channel. This is Vic. Bye-bye.